What's up guys, Sagi here and welcome to another 5-Minute Friday. This is a new series where I spend 5 minutes giving you either the most important information or my opinion about a specific product or topic because who doesn't have 5 minutes? Today I want to talk to you about low light performance. So let's throw 5 minutes on the clock and get started. One of the most common questions that I get whenever I do a camera review is how is the low light performance? People are always interested in seeing samples of photos shot at different ISO values. And in case you aren't familiar with this, the higher the ISO value, the more sensitive this sensor becomes and the more noise gets introduced in your photo or videos. So if we look at a photo at ISO 100 and then we look at the same photo at ISO 25,600, you'll see how much more noise we get as the ISO value goes up. Now, the better the sensor and the processor, the higher the ISO settings that we can shoot at, without introducing so much noise that it ruins our images or footage. And since I got this question all the time, I started thinking about why is it that I don't really think too much about low light performance when I shop for a camera? And the first thing that came to mind is that cameras nowadays are so much better in low light than similarly priced cameras from 5 or even 3 years ago. And then I realized something else. I don't shoot in the dark. Now, I don't mean that I don't actually shoot in low light situations. It's just that for the most part, I can still achieve a proper exposure at an acceptable ISO value by following a few simple steps. The first thing I do is I make sure that I open up my aperture. Shooting with a low aperture value like f2.8 or 1.8 or even wider means that the entrance pupil on my lens is wide open. This lets a lot of light hit the sensor and I'm really able to maximize the amount of available light. To do this, I do need to use a fast lens, something like the Sigma 18-35 f1.8 or the super affordable 50mm f1.8. Now the next thing I do is I slow down my shutter speed. So the longer the shutter speed is, the more time the sensor is exposed to light and the brighter my exposure gets. And this is an example where having a camera like the Sony a7 III with IBIS or in-body image stabilization can help because I can slow down the shutter speed and the camera will compensate for some of the camera shake by up to 5 stops. And this lets me get sharp images at a lower shutter speed than I used to be able to. Next, whenever possible, and this is not always the case, I try to use a tripod when shooting in low light, or at least to stabilize the camera in some way. Now, this is especially important when I'm shooting long exposure shots and I may have a shutter speed of 6 or even 10 seconds. Now, anything will do here as long as the camera is stable. I can use a tripod or a table, sometimes even the ground. Now, finally, if I'm shooting a person in low light, let's say in the street, I'll either find a light source or I'll add light. If I'm shooting a person downtown at night, I'll go look for an LED sign or a street lamp and use as much available light as I can to brighten up my subject. If I can't find any light, I'll just add light, and this could be in the form of a flash or even something as small as a lume cube, which I always keep in my bag. You'll be amazed at what a difference this tiny light can make at night, and I'm actually going to use it as part of my professional lighting at any budget tutorial, so if you're interested in learning more, hit the subscribe and notification buttons. I want to go full circle to my first point. Cameras today are so much better than they were just a few years ago. And I don't undervalue low light performance. The reality is that even with the tips and tricks that I gave you, there are still times where you simply can't compensate enough for the insufficient amount of light that you have. You might not have a fast enough lens, you might need to shoot at a smaller aperture, you might need to shoot at a faster shutter speed, and you might not have the ability to add light. And this is where having a camera with a better sensor and a more powerful processor can be a real lifesaver. That was one of the main reasons that I decided to add the Sony a7 III to my camera bag. It allows me to shoot at higher ISO values when needed, and I still get really crisp result without having to worry about noise. With all this being said, I'm going to bring up one last thought. Sharp images with noise are better than blurry images with less noise. So if you have to choose a higher ISO to make sure that your images are sharp. You can remove some noise in post if needed, but a blurry image is it's ruined forever. Okay, so turning this back to you, I want to know what you think. Is low light performance something that you think about when you look at cameras? And What are some types of situations that you face where low light is an issue? Also, are there some other tips and tricks that you use when you're shooting in low light? If you want me to do a more detailed video or tutorial about shooting photos and video in low light, let me know in the comments section and I'll put together the tutorial. So this wraps up this episode of 5 Minute Friday. If you enjoyed it, please let me know by leaving a comment, giving this video a thumbs up, and if you haven't yet, join the community by hitting the subscribe and notification buttons. Also, if you have any follow-up questions, I do my best to answer every comment that I get, so go ahead and drop it in the comment section below. You can always find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Tech Gear Talk, and you know what I always say, buy it nice or buy it twice. Good luck and see you soon.